Good evening. I'd like to call to order this Caldwell County Department of Social Services Board meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 30th, 5 o'clock. First on the agenda is going to be our Pledge of Allegiance, and invocation will be by Will Wakefield.
Please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for invocation, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. God, we thank you for a beautiful day. We thank you for this time that we can gather and do the business of this county and this department. We pray that you would guide each of our board members and our staff as we try to serve those who are in need in our county, and we pray for those who are in need. We pray for those who are struggling with a lot of different things going on in their lives and crises, and we just pray that this department would be able to assist them and help those in need. And we just ask for your guidance, that we would use our services and our resources to do the best we can for our county. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Is there any, need to approve the agenda? Is there any amendments to the agenda at all? Lori, everything good? Okay. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion, we have a second, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, the next item is items for decision. The 2021-2022 budget proposal, Mr. Will Wakefield, Director, and Chris Conley.
Thank you. I placed a updated, just barely updated budget from what we have talked about in the past couple of weeks. And so down there at the bottom, you will see it's only a change of maybe a couple $1,000. But what you will see for our requested fiscal year 22 budget, $14,783,749. And the county portion of that is $5,178,927. And like I said, that's only a couple thousand different from what we've discussed over the past couple of weeks. Chris always does some any numbers that he can tweak or change right up until we turn that into the county. He does that until we turn that in tomorrow. So that is our budget that we request that you approve, and we will submit that tomorrow with your approval. If you have any questions at all, then we'll be happy to answer those at this time.
Anybody have any questions regarding the budget? I do want to take a minute to thank you and your staff for taking the time to really look through this budget. I think you guys did a really good job. You're only asking for the things that you feel like you need. There is no wants in here. There's nothing extraordinary outside of, what we've been doing the previous years. There is a couple of items, new positions that I think, we can obviously easily justify, and I don't think there's going to be any issues from the county commissioner side either. So, not that I'm aware of anyway, but, I think you guys did a good job, and I just want to commend you on your hard work, because I know it's not easy having to dig through these numbers. I would probably lose my mind if I had to do that every day of my life. I remember telling a math teacher years ago that she kept questioning me and wanted me to learn more about math. I said, let me just explain something to you. I'm never going to have a job that I'm going to have to know math. Not only am I a county commissioner, and I'm also the chairman of the DSS Board, but my real job is working for Ally Bank. So I deal with math every single day of my life. So I wish I'd have listened to her more back then, But so with that being said, there's no questions. I will entertain a motion to approve the 2021-22 budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is reports. Social work recognition. Ms. Kim Arnett, Program Administrator.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So So this evening, we want to take some time to show our appreciation for our social workers. And, March was social worker, or is Social Worker Appreciation Month. And so, we wanted to take some time to give you guys a real picture of what our social workers and what their supervisors do on a day-to-day basis. And so I thought the best way to do that would be to let the people who actually do the hard work tell you about it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And I'm going to I'm going to tell you who's going to be speaking to you. I'm going to tell you about their roles. And they may have to remind you as they get up here what their role is so that you can understand, what discipline they're working in. So first, we're going to have Crystal Henderson and Nancy Rogers talk to you. Crystal is one of our in-home social workers, and so what she does is after a family has been assessed and investigated for any type of allegation of child maltreatment and their safety issues that have been found, and our social workers work intensely with the family. They're in the homes, they're really trying to resolve those safety issues. That's what Crystal does. Nancy Rogers is one of our supervisors, and she supervises a team of assessors or investigators. And those are the social workers that are the ones who knock on the door. That's the first person the family sees. That's the person who is saying, hey, I need to talk to you about, some report or referral we got, talking about how they're parenting their children. So Nancy supervises 5 of those staff, so 5 of those social workers. So after they talk to you for a few minutes, then we're going to have Felicia Crouch and Casey Pewitt talk to you. Felicia Crouch is one of our permanency social workers, and she works with families when their children have been removed from a parent's legal custody and placed in the custody of the department with the goal of reunification at first. And of course, if reunification is unsuccessful, then we move to other permanent plans. But that's what Felicia does. Casey Pewitt is going to talk to you also, and she is a supervisor with the agency. She supervises a team of permanency workers, and so she's going to talk to you about what they do and what that's like. Then we're going to have April Wiles-Williamson talk to you, and she is one of our investigators with Adult Protective Services. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to be an adult services social worker. So I will turn it over to Nancy and Crystal and let them tell you all about what they do.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Glad you guys could join us tonight.
Thank you for having us. So as Kim said, I'm Crystal, and I do in-home services. I looked up the state definition of child protective services just to kind of see what that was. And so the state of North Carolina defines child protective services as a program that strives to ensure safe, permanent, nurturing families for children by protecting them from abuse and neglect while attempting to preserve the family unit. So when Kim asked me if I would come and talk to you guys about what a typical day looked like, I didn't realize it was going to be so difficult to condense that to just a few minutes. No 2 days are ever exactly alike, and as much as we would love for our days to be scheduled and routine, that's rarely the case. Child welfare is a myriad of experiences. Every day we travel to schools, hospitals, jails, homes, and each day we talk with the most difficult of families about topics such as parenting, relationships, substance use, trauma, abuse, prostitution, violence. No topic or location is ever off limits, and there's no end to the situations that we're going to find ourselves in each day. We also experience countless emotions. I've laughed with families. I've cried with families. I've grieved with families. I've been angry at them, and I've even lost my temper with them. I have genuinely cared for families, and I've had countless sleepless nights worrying about them. We walk into high-risk, potentially unsafe homes every day, homes which law enforcement officers urge us to use caution, and we're armed with only a notebook and a pen to try to offer support to families who are at times hostile, in the midst of crisis, usually don't want us there, and even at times tell us that we're the reason for their problems. While the required forms that the state requires are the same for every family, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to child welfare. Every family needs something different from us. Here are a few things that Child Protective Services workers have done to support families. We have transported families to any place you can imagine: the grocery store, court, the doctor, hospitals, rehab, A mother once even tried to get me to drop her off for date night after I took her to an NA meeting. We've helped victims escape abusive relationships and then attended court and sat with them while they testify against their abuser so they don't feel quite so anxious and afraid. We've grieved with a family when their baby died and then grieved with the same family a few months later when their mom passed away. We've helped families clean their homes you wouldn't even want to step in, let alone clean. I once washed dishes for 3 hours straight and didn't get them all done. We once rented a dumpster just to help a family clean the trash out of their home. We've been in homes with smells so pungent and putrid that it makes your nose burn and your eyes water, and even hours after you've left, that smell still lingers in your clothes and on your hair. And every day we do that with a straight face because we would never want to offend one of our families. We've thrown away clothes and shoes that we've ruined after going into someone's home, both because of sanitary reasons and even methamphetamine. A coworker once gifted her entire team silicone shoe covers for Christmas. Speaking of dirty homes, just when you think a situation couldn't get any worse, imagine a roach or roaches falling from the ceiling and landing on you as you're talking with a family. We've been in homes with roaches so thick it almost looks like the walls are moving. Homes with bed bugs, rats larger than domestic cats, and somewhere in the chaos you remember there's a family that lives here that doesn't get to go home in an hour when the visit's over. I've taken more baths with the Clorox wipe than I care to admit. We have helped families apply lice treatment to their children's hair and then stopped on the way home to pick one up for ourselves, just in case. We've mailed a mother pictures her children drew and letters they wrote to her while she was in rehab to keep her encouraged when she wanted to leave. We've moved more families than U-Haul, at least it feels that way. In a field dominated by women, if you've ever seen a couple girls picking up a mattress on the side of a busy highway because it fell off a truck, I'd bet money they were social workers. We've returned a mentally ill mother's stuffed animal way after hours when she accidentally left it in her social worker's car because her own children were removed, and this toy, which she treated as her own child, somehow brought her some comfort. We uncomfortably watch clients urinate when they complete drug screens and have had to call them out when they tried to defraud it. A mom once tried to hand an in-home worker a medicine bottle full of urine that was inserted in a place no pill bottle should ever be. If that's not awkward enough, how about doing a home visit and inadvertently finding the parents having adult time outside in their car? We have to teach families the most basic of skills: how to mix formula, how often you have to feed your baby, how to burp a baby, change a diaper, how to make beds, how to cook anything that isn't frozen, how to budget, how to clean, how to dress for court, even an interview, when it's appropriate to take your child to the doctor or even call 911 are just a few things that come to mind. We've tried to comfort children and explain to them why they can't keep living with their family when worse comes to worse and those children can't safely stay in that home anymore. I imagine Child Protective Service workers have purchased hundreds of Happy Meals throughout the years in some attempt to make a kid feel better, even if it's only for a few minutes. We've transported children in custody to live in homes with foster parents we've never met. And on the way, we try to convince them that it really is going to be okay, and we're choking back our own tears in the meantime. Being a CPS social worker has its challenges on a normal day. And with 2020, we had COVID, along with all the other problems that don't just go away because there's a pandemic. Not only were we completing our same responsibilities each day, but we were tasked with trying to find supplies, not only for our own family, but for the families we serve. Imagine searching for toilet paper during this toilet paper shortage of 2020, and then being willing to share it with the families you work with. We delivered meals to families one day every week when school shut down last year. A lot of the programs that we relied on to support families didn't operate for a large part of 2020, and we were left trying to identify alternate resources and at times often trying to provide interventions to families ourselves. We often hear, "There's no way I could do your job." We are frequently pulled away from our own families for long hours, and at times they too wonder why we continue to do this job. They ask us why we continue to show up for a thankless job where most hate to see us coming, where being yelled at, cursed, and threatened is just something you get used to. At times, threats are even made about our own family. One in-home worker was even assaulted with a shoe. Burnout is common in child welfare, but there's a few that have true passion for it, and even when we try to leave, something always pulls us back. It takes a special set of skills to be a Child Protective Services social worker, skills you don't learn in any classroom, skills like resiliency, a sense of humor, positive attitude, flexibility, the ability to build rapport with the most difficult of people are a must for CPS workers. And occasionally, there's those remarkable times when you get to be a small part of someone's story, those moments when you encounter an unusually successful family and you see a glimpse of something beautiful. Those families that totally transform their lives, and you realize you not only got to be witness to it, but you're also a part of it. It's those families that continue to contact you years after their case is closed because you truly supported them, partnered with them, and they not only accepted their responsibility, but they did something about it. The families that realized that we weren't the enemy, stopped treating us as such, and allowed us to support and help them are the reasons that we continue to do this.
My name is Nancy Rogers, as Kim said, and I supervise a team of assessors and investigators. So I just want to thank Crystal for such a brutally honest look into what CPS social workers are faced with during their work to protect this most vulnerable and valuable population, and that's the children in our county who are suffering possible abuse and neglect and cannot protect themselves. And I can tell you that Crystal did not embellish or exaggerate at all about what I call our superheroes that work for DSS and what they do day to day. They work tirelessly and often without any recognition or thanks from the community to ensure that children are safe and that families' needs are met. CPS social work is a field which sometimes seems very vague and mysterious, because, quite frankly, it's hard to put the job into words. It's hard to describe the intense physical and mental toll that it takes on a worker's body and mind. There are things that our social workers hear and see that no one wants to think about, but that are very real and happening right here in our own community. But I can tell you that our social workers at Caldwell County DSS put their heart and soul into their jobs. They truly do. I can't tell you the special occasions that our social workers, and that includes our investigators, assessors, in-home, foster care workers, but the special occasions that they've missed with their own families after they've had a late afternoon visit and found a child in danger. Finding a suicidal child or a suicidal parent, a family without basic needs, such as food, a child living with a dangerous or violent person, such as a sex offender, a child who's disclosing that they themselves are being physically or sexually abused in their home. When a social worker walks into a situation like that, there's no time to call for another worker. So you can make your own grandmother's 87th birthday party, your spouse's company event, your child's ball game where they are the star player, your child's dance recital. One social worker even missed her own grandmother's funeral as she had to testify in court on a case she had worked, and she knew wholeheartedly that she was the one that knew that case best, and she wanted to ensure that those children did not go back home. That takes intense commitment and dedication to a job, and that's our staff. It's sometimes very difficult as a supervisor to lift these folks up and encourage them when, with a handful of difficult cases, they can feel as though they are running on empty tanks. We often wish that we had body cams, such as law enforcement, so the public could see and hear what we do. Due to confidentiality, that cannot happen. Words such as neglect, injurious environment, abuse, domestic violence, substance abuse, and mental health sound like textbook terms that the public may be aware of, but have no idea what these look like played out day to day in a social worker's life. Imagine walking into a home where a mother is so high her young children are unsupervised and playing with dangerous objects. Imagine a home with several children and the only food found in the home is 1 can of green beans and a stale loaf of bread. Imagine a child at school telling you horrific details of abuse they are enduring at home. Imagine a child being bitten by a father as he tries to pull the father off of his mother while the mother is being beaten. Imagine sitting with a 6-week-old baby as he takes 2 days to die because he had colic and his father couldn't get him to quit crying, so he beat him almost to death. Imagine 2-year-old twins testing positive for methamphetamines twice because their mother takes them with her into a drug house where she uses drugs. Imagine a mother who does not send her children to school and lives in filth with roaches and human and animal waste because her schizophrenia is so bad she doesn't recognize the issues of living that way. I would love to say that those are all far-fetched examples that I made up, but they're not. They are real-life case examples that our social workers here in Caldwell County have responded to. Now imagine that you were that responding social worker who had to find a safe solution to those problems. The weight of the world is felt by our staff, and again, they work intensely to make sure that they do find a safe solution for these children. No one that I have ever encountered that is passionate about social work as a career is out for recognition or in it for the money. We took an oath to protect children and make families stronger, and that's what we and our social workers passionately do every day. Thank you.
Fantastic. Before we move on to the next one, I will tell you, while we're talking about child protective services and what the social workers do, I had an encounter yesterday. I came across a young man. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. We just happened to meet at a particular moment, and we were sharing life stories, and this kid was absolutely dynamite. I mean, he was high energy. I mean, really on top of his game. He's a fireman. Part-time here and full-time in a larger agency a couple of counties over. And I asked him, how did you get into fire service? You know, what made you go into the fire service? So he kind of got into the story. Long story short, I could talk to you for hours about it like I did him, but long story short, he started doing drugs and alcohol when he was 12 years old. Grew up in a very abusive family, grew up in a large, a lot of drugs and just not so good environment. Became a foster child, bounced from house to house, never went to the same school twice, went from home to home, was very not a good kid, was in trouble from first time he went to juvie, he was 14. Once he became an adult, he's 23, he started going to adult prison. Spent some, nothing. Most of it was all small, petty, misdemeanor type things, but his whole life was all about crime and just not being a good person. And he happened to be in Myrtle Beach, and he was 19 years old, almost 19, and was out of the social worker system. But he got arrested in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and he said, the first person I thought about calling was my social worker that I've been working with. And he didn't have nobody to turn to. He said the only person, I didn't have a telephone, like a cell phone. He said the only person that I knew whose phone number was by heart was my social worker. He called her, not in this county, one county over. She got in her car at 2 o'clock in the morning and drove to Myrtle Beach and got him out of jail and brought him back home with her. He's now a full-time firefighter in Gastonia, North Carolina.
That's awesome.
He's part-time over here, got his own place, own home. He's fixing to get married, got a child, and is looking to go to do some other things with his life in a few years. But I tell you this story because I know you guys sometimes don't think that what you do makes a difference, but I promise you, that one man's life was changed by a social worker. He'll never be the same person ever again. He's going to be a great person, and he's going to give back to society as much as he can. And I would love at some point in time to have him come over and maybe speak with some of the families, or he's offered that. I mean, he does a little bit of that around. You just wouldn't believe how fantastic this young man is. So we can talk about that later, but I want to tell you that story because you're absolutely right. Nobody really knows what you do. I was one of them. I knew you were there. I knew you kind of knew what you did, but I really didn't know what you did. So I want to commend you fantastic words that spoke to, I think, all of our hearts. And anybody who's watching home at television, if you didn't get emotional listening to that, you will never get emotional. So I thank you for what you do. I know that's two small words, but it means a lot. So who's next?
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
Felicia Crouch, and I certainly can appreciate that because I've worked with many youth along the years and had many to call me after they've aged out of the system and just talk, advice. They've gone to the military, they've grown up, had their own families, and I still have phone calls today.
That's fantastic.
It's a great feeling.
Got to make you feel good.
It does, it really does. I do permanency for the department, and I've been in all areas of child welfare, and I've really found that permanency is where I belong. The last 16 years, I've enjoyed permanency. And as a young person, I grew up here in the county and knew that when I worked in a local grocery store that I wanted to grow up and help people. So that's what I've done. And so went on to college, and no class at all would prepare us for what we do today. No words of
Yeah.
advice, encouragement, warnings. And so we go to this job because we have a passion. We want to help people, and that's exactly what I do every day. So foster care, it's similar to what Crystal does and responsibilities. However, in my role, we become court-ordered with the families, and when they could voluntarily access services with in-home services in foster care and permanency, the court has to step in, unfortunately, and that's when safety cannot be assured. We have to move forward with asking for custody. And so there is monthly in-person contact with everybody involved. That's foster families, that's children, that's parents, that's school teachers, counselors, therapists, anybody who would be involved with the family are our contacts. And so, of course, with that comes the documentation, the paperwork, the trail, and travel. No matter where we are, these children, we follow them. If they are local, we see them local. If they go to the coast, we go to the coast to make sure that they are safe no matter where they are. So, we look for placement. A lot of times children cannot stay in the same place day in and day out. It's either mental health needs, emotional needs, behaviors. Yet sometimes there are deaths in foster families that won't allow that placement to continue on. Sometimes the children become very unstable and very unsafe, and therefore we have to look for placements that will accommodate their needs. And that could be a foster home, a different foster home. It could be a relative. It could be a leveled foster placement. It could be as far as a hospitalization. And I've had, sadly, many children who have required a hospitalization due to the trauma that they've endured in their short but long periods of life. So with all that, I say this job is very stressful. We go through times that we see worse days, we see brighter days, but when we look, this job is extremely stressful. It's dangerous. I've had families follow me home. I've had my life threatened. I've had my family threatened. All it takes is looking me up on the internet, looking my coworkers up, and it's easy these days. The world of technology makes it very simple. These situations, although they're dangerous, we continue on. We push every single day. Like Crystal said, I've gone to bed many, many nights worried about my children. I've gone to bed thinking this day's over. My phone rings at 11 or 12 o'clock because the police has one of my teenagers pulled out of a gas station because they found him run away in the middle of Charlotte. And so I tiptoed to another room so I don't disturb my husband, and I deal with that family. I don't want another on-call worker to pick up and say, oh my gracious, what's going on? I'm that one who knows what's going on. I take that phone call. I don't wait till the next day. If it means I leave my home and I go to the hospital to respond to whatever emergency is happening. That's exactly what I do. If I get a call in the middle of the day, you have a runaway, you have a dangerous child. I've left work on a rush at 4 o'clock, went, packed a bag, knew and I was going from one place to another. Get there, stay at the hospital all night, get home at 2 a.m., only to leave at lunchtime that following day, just hours later, headed to Jacksonville to do an admission in a psychiatric hospital. After that, following to the next town on the coast to do yet another visit before I make my way back home, back to Caldwell County. Regardless of the situations, emergencies arise that we must deal with daily, usually right then. Our emergencies don't wait till the next day. They don't wait till that next business day. We drop from our own family immediately to be available to other families, even to assist our coworkers during emergent times. So many social workers have missed special occasions due to that duty calling. We are the frontline workers who deal with the mentally ill adults and the children, drug-addicted adults, and sometimes our youth, abusive, hostile parents, children who are right in the middle of domestic violence situations, children who have been in the middle of gunfire, knife fights, those types of situations, adults who physically and sexually abuse their children, and those who simply do not want their children, the families who have shown up at our buildings years along the way just because they don't want their children. Here, DSS, take them. I don't want them. They're mean. They're bad. You can take care of them. What do? We pick that up and we take care of those children. I've taken phone calls after hours while on vacation for runaway children, crisis in foster homes, or to simply support a parent who needs the support from me that they can't get when they don't have even one family member. I take phone calls to soothe a young child who is so scared or who wants to harm himself or herself because I don't want that child hurt. I answer calls from the police who are out looking for runaway children or taking a child for hospitalization. We, the social workers, have made trips to the coast and back to Caldwell County in the very same day. This trip always includes transporting a youth to a facility because there's not one closer to home. I'm often made fun of, laughed about, joked with. We have to make the best. You drive more than a truck driver is allowed to in a day. Absolutely, because our children have to be safe. These facilities, they take our children, but once we arrive, there's usually a minimum of a 2-hour intake. The last child I had, I sat 6 hours at this hospital only to return from that facility from Jacksonville, extremely sick, driving all the way back to Caldwell County, not knowing if I was going to be able to make it that full drive back. This trip does not provide any reimbursement for a hot meal. When we make that trip, round trip, each time that we go to Jacksonville and back. That is at our expense. We need a break, we need a hot meal, but the county has decided you don't get that reimbursement. That's out of our pocket, but we must have something to fuel us to keep going. This past year has been one of uncertain times for every single person. Social workers were sent home to work, a situation we have never encountered before. For the last year, our agency has made this work in many ways to accommodate our workload and the families we are serving. We still work diligently to keep children safe. We have done the loads amounts of paperwork required by the state and the department, and still yet made sure that our children were safe. We made this work even better than we imagined, and been very, very productive in these very difficult times. The resources and the services that have been put on hold to our families, the social workers basically have stepped up and played that therapist role, been that person, been that support that we could not access because COVID shut the doors down. Even during telework, and our days have been chaotic, we've worked very hard. Our days can start out as planned with detail, but can immediately be detoured within just a couple of minutes, within a couple of hours. An hour plan that we started out with at 8 a.m. is totally gone out the door at 9 o'clock a.m. The career path I chose was never taken to make me rich, as social workers are far from rich, contradictory to what the general public feels and thinks. We choose this job daily because we have a passion of helping others. It is not just a job to us. It is what we choose to do to serve in our community. We would love to make a difference in every single day of every single life that we serve. Some days those differences are very small, and other days it means we are able to ask the judge to allow children to return to their parents. At other times, children are not so fortunate. However, they are kept safe in an adoptive home, and we are able to fulfill a permanent plan through adoption or through guardianship or through custody with an appropriate person that's been identified. We want to see families succeed. We want to see children safe, happy, and be able to be the children that they are designed to be. Not only do we support our families to the very fullest extent, we need support from you and the county, and we need to know we are valued for what we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Casey Pewitt, and I try very hard to avoid situations like this. So y'all are going to watch me turn multiple shades of red
You're
as I
going to be
stand here and
just
tremble.
fine.
Okay. I supervise permanency, and I actually supervise Felicia. And one of the things she said, and it's going to take me off topic for a minute, is, you know, she takes calls on vacation. She takes calls when she's sick. She takes calls after hours. And as her supervisor, I know that's not good. I know she's going to burn out faster when she does that. But at the same time, it is quality. And that's what we have with her. She is a quality worker, and she is taking care of this situation, whereas the on-call worker wouldn't be aware. The on-call supervisor probably would not be as aware, but she can step right in and say what needs to happen when someone's calling on an emergency. And so I'm really torn on that because I know that's not good, and I don't need to be letting her do that. But I do. And I don't know of any way around that because that's the world we live in. And that's social work. And that's what she does. Now I'm going to go to reading. Sorry. What can I ever, okay, I'm going to have to move it away from me a little bit. What can I ever do to say enough about these amazing workers? Unless you have ever done one of these jobs, you will never truly understand what all goes into it and the sacrifices they make. It's not just making a referral for a service. It's finding a service in this rural community that can adequately meet the client's need. It's figuring out how to get them there or working around their employment schedule. It's talking to people through their highs and lows. It's helping them recognize their importance and their worth. They don't believe they're worth a lot. So a lot of it is building them up. There's so much involved, I cannot even begin to scratch the surface. No day is the same. No client is the same. We weren't sure how we would deal with this pandemic. Workers were sent home, but still had to make visits in the community. We were not recognized as frontline workers for several months, but our work still, or I guess I should say essential workers for several months. But our workers still had to go into people's homes and do what they do. The requirements on protective services did not change just because we were in a global crisis. In the first couple of months of this pandemic, we were hoarding scarce supplies. We were like, have you got any masks? Have you got any gloves? Anybody got wipes? Because we need them. You know, and that was just to take care of us so that when we went into a home, we weren't wearing the same mask over and over. That was just trying to take care of us when we were going in. And I lost my place, so sorry, hang on a second. Many of us were hoping, you know, we were hoarding these supplies and really hoping that we were not getting ready to take this back to our family. Because even now, you know, there's so much unknown still about the COVID pandemic. But back in the early days, it was terrifying. And being told, you still have to go into these homes and work with families. And we were like, but what about our family? We still had to go. Sorry, I lost my place again. Okay. When we were sent home to work, we didn't know how it would work out. But not only did we work it out, we thrived in a home-based environment. A few workers learned early on working from home was not for them, and they were having conversations with us going, I really want to be back in the office. And we were like, okay, come back in the office. And other workers were like, you would not believe what all I'm getting done. And I'm reading their dictation, and I am seeing dictation almost doubling. And I'm seeing them reaching out to community people they haven't had time to reach out to because they don't have all the distractions of someone in the office walking by going, hey, did you check on this? And hey, can you go run and check the copier? It's not working. And where's your cell phone? And oh my gosh, so-and-so called. Did you talk to them? They don't have all those distractions. and they were thriving. As our workers typically do, they took the limitations and they made it work, and that's what we do. I supervise a permanency team. Permanency or foster care is where the case has gone before a judge and the children have been placed in the department's custody. We are rarely involved with a family less than 9 months and more typically work with a family for several years. We have 18 permanency workers and 3 permanency supervisors. In permanency alone, we have 394 years of social work experience. Wow. That is among 21 workers, you have 394 years of social work experience. That is so amazing. How fortunate our agency is to have that. Our least experienced permanency worker has 5 years social work experience. I supervise 6 permanency workers, and between us, we have 118 years of experience, with my least experienced worker having 9 years. These experienced workers could have taken their skills and gone to any county and probably made more money. But how amazing that they're working here for us. And what does it say about our agency that they have stayed? The social workers work tirelessly in a field people are determined to misunderstand. They are always told they do too much or too little, and because of confidentiality, they can never defend themselves. That always irritates me. I can't talk to the reporter and say, but really, this is what all we tried. I can't do that. But it's so easy for someone else to stand there and point fingers at me, and I just smile, because that's all I can do. They are the ones who pick up the pieces when other agencies have fulfilled their obligation and have cleared the scene. They do not receive any thanks from the community. You won't find their good deeds in newspaper, and no civic organization will line up to recognize them for their dedication and sacrifice and present them with an award. You won't have that ever. In spite of their secondary trauma, they are up every morning and they show up. They show up to take care of the weak, the voiceless, the downtrodden, and the broken. They show up to take care of the most vulnerable in our community because that's all they know how to do. They work every day to provide services for people who curse them, disrespect them, and threaten them. And they show up the next day to do it all over again. These are heroes. Thank you.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you, Casey. See, you did a really good job with that, even though you was all nervous, you said. You weren't nervous at all.
I was so true.
So we'll have you come back next, some more meetings and talk to us.
You're going. Send her over there.
Hi,
Hello.
I am April Wiles-Williamson, and I do adult protective social work. So I'm going to talk about a daily basis that I've recently encountered. And it's similar to all of the social worker, APS social workers. So when I get up, my day starts. It starts as soon as my eyes open. My mind's wondering what I need to do. I need to make a list of everybody that I need to see, what I need to do, what forms I need to fill out, what documentation I need to make sure that is in the system so my fellow coworkers will know what's going on with my cases. So I start my way to work, and I'm still continuously making this list. And by the time I get to work, I have a plan in my head. And I go off and I start my first home visit. I get to the home and I find an elderly person, an elderly lady that was on the floor because she couldn't make it to her bathroom, and we had to call EMS to help her get up. We had to make sure that she was able to take her medicine, that she was able to take care of herself on her own before we left. We had to do our evaluations and make sure that the proper services were coming in her home to keep her there. This visit lasted a little longer than I expected because we did have to help her. We did have to make sure that we had services. We had to make sure EMS was there before we could go off scene and get her to where she needs to be, whether it's at the hospital or back where a family member to come to make sure to check on her throughout the day. So then, after this home visit, I'm ready to go to my next home visit or to see another person, and we get a phone call. And it's an immediate. We have to go to another visit right away because someone else is in need, urgent need. And when we drive up to her house, or the person's house, it's a lady that's scared to death because one of her family members have threatened to hurt her in harm's way. So she's ready to take a DVO out. Well, you know my list. I had a long list of things to do, but now I'm dropping everything to take this elderly lady to the courthouse. Let's get a DVO. So now we are steadily filling out paperwork for this lady to get this proper documentation that she needs to feel safe in her home. We sit in the courtroom and wait for the judge to sign our order. Then we make sure that we get the sheriff's department. We have to coordinate to make sure that she is safe, but the family member is out of her home. So that's 5 hours of our day to make sure that she's safe, this person's out of the home, and we can get her in her home safely. So at this point, I have a lot of documentation to do. 5 hours a day, it's almost 5 o'clock. I have, while I'm in the courtroom, I get a phone call, several phone calls from several different clients because we have other clients that's exploding. I have one that's she's manic and we are trying to help her, but I had to put her on hold today because I had an emergency to deal with on this side of someone. So it's 5 o'clock. Everybody's going home. My work's not done because I haven't documented. And if you don't document, it didn't happen. I haven't filled out my forms because the state requires us to have forms in on appropriate time. I have to make sure that I get all these forms in. My children are at home. I miss time with my children. I miss time with family. We have on call. Adult Protective Services, we have on call 2 weeks. There's 5 of us 2 weeks at a time. That's every 10 weeks. Those 2 weeks, I'm on call 24/7. I work 8 to 5. I carry my phone all the time. I get phone calls 6, 7, 8, 10, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning because there's someone that needs to be IVC'd. There's someone that needs to go to the hospital. There's someone that is unsafe in their home. We get phone calls from any concerned member in the community. And if it's urgent, we have to go out. We also take phone calls even when we're not on call. We have clients that call us because they're concerned that something's going to happen to them or they're manic and they don't have no one else to call. They call us. They call the friendly person that they know. They call their social worker. And we can't just ignore it. We have to talk to them. We have to make sure that they're okay, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock, however. We take that time from our families. We also make sure that our wards and people that we have to remove from the home, that we make sure that they have clothes. Because of a lot of our families, once we step in and we have to take custody, 60-day orders, or they become our wards, their families kind of drop off. So they become our responsibility, and we have to make sure that they're clothed. We have to make sure that they have the things that they need. One of my gentlemen doesn't have family that sees him in a nursing home, so I made sure that I got pictures of their family so I can hang it up in his room so he can remember his family. We also, so when we do reports, when reports come in, it has to be It has to show that an adult is abused, neglected, or exploited. If they meet the criteria of a disabled adult and, or they don't, it doesn't meet the criteria of being abused, neglected, or exploited, we have what's called an outreach service. And we have a social worker that goes out and offers that person services. So this person doesn't become an APS report. So this person goes out and she offers, if they need food, we make sure that we get food. We make sure that they have power. In the wintertime, we make sure that they have heat. If we have to go to Walmart and make sure that they get a heating unit during the night, that's what we do. We make sure that they get the mental health services and the medical services. We make sure that they have placement. If we have to carry them to placement, we will transport them as well. We make sure that people get payees. A lot of people just need a service, a payee service, to help them get through their bills and to live in the community. That's our job, is to make sure these adults can stay in the community and thrive in the community, and because that's what they want. Remember, adults can make bad decisions. We do go into homes that have roaches and that have feces on the floor. And one day I did step in human feces and did not realize it. And there's trash and clutter everywhere, but an adult can make bad decisions for themselves. That's different from child protective services. And every day we go home thinking, why did they want to make that choice? But we have to keep thinking to ourselves, they have that right. So that's what we do. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
So, and I will just say thank you to all of our staff who spoke today, and just say a thank you from the agency and certainly from the board for all that you do and all that you put into the work that you do. And it's always good, it's always helpful to hear what you have to say. It's always good to hear those experiences. It's always good to hear those experiences when things turn out well, because it's nice to hear when things turn out well. But it's also good to hear when things don't turn out so well, because that helps us as an agency, it helps us as a community, it helps the board to understand that these are the things that we face, and these are the things that we have to work with, and these are the things that we have to work on. So I know sometimes we want things to be good, and we want everything to work out well, but we know that's not always going to be the case, and we know that that's what we're here for. We're here for when things don't go well. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for speaking with us today.
And I will tell you this, I generally don't do this, but when you were speaking to Crystal earlier, I sent Will a text message. I think it's, and some of these folks, and they've heard me say this before, but before I came on the DSS board, I had no idea what went on in that building out there. My perception was it was a building where a bunch of free stuff was passed out. Never understood. It's just, lack of knowledge. And, I have had some personal conversations with Will and understood the fact that we need to do a better job of educating people and our citizens on what actually does take place in that building. Because quite honestly, there's more good than bad. In fact, 99% of it is good. Now, we don't always have the 99% good turnout, but the effort is always there to bring good to our families and our citizens in this county. Unfortunately, when you're in a rural community like ours, there's a desperate need, true need, for the services that you provide to our citizens. And I think we just have to continue to educate, what's going on. So I've asked Will, and I'm looking forward to this, and unfortunately, Casey, you're going to have to come back. So I've asked Will to please try to get your story on the next commissioner's agenda, that we can get it on. I don't know if we'll have time to get it on April's or not, but maybe we can get it on May's if we can't. You don't have to panic. You still got some time. But I do think it's important that you take your message to the people who control your destiny as far as a leadership role. I think it's important that they know that, because I promise you they don't know. And it's not because it's nobody's fault. It's just a sheer lack of knowledge of what takes place. And I think we've done a much better job over the last few years of educating our commissioners and our citizens on what's going on out there, because we have a lot of presentations. Most of the time, there's been, not recently, but last couple of years, we've done a lot of educational type things to help commissioners understand the processes and what takes place out there. So I've asked Will to try to put that together, and I'd like to have you guys come, because I think it is important that you get your message out. And I think it's important that you get your message out to the public. And your conversation today and your message to me is very clear, and I think it's clear to the rest of the board. We appreciate what you do. You've got our support. We'll continue to do that, but let's continue to get that message out across the county and across the state and across our nation, because I think social workers are, you go back and look at the state when we talking about essential workers. Will and I had numerous conversations about this, and I did make several phone calls, and there was some local legislators who really did try to get that happen, but from across the state, it didn't happen. So that's our fault for not sharing our message and helping our state legislators to understand what we truly do, what you truly do. So we'll continue to strive to get that message out and improve that for you.
I have a quick question.
Absolutely, that was my next thing.
In case he was talking, you mentioned the remote working situation. And so I know, because my daughter is a teacher, I know that, some of the schedules are changing and some kids are going back. And so is that something where you, especially those that are thriving in what they're doing, is that something where they will have an option to remain remote, or is that even something being toyed with, or, I don't know. Who should I ask?
Yeah, the April 1st, this Thursday, all staff will be coming back to kind of what we say normal working, non-teleworking, from a county perspective, yes.
So the answer to that question is that April 1st, all remote working will end, and they'll come back to the office and work. There is some conversation from an HR perspective that, I've asked for them to look at it to see if it's, possible. Some people do well working from home. I work from home. I did well the first 6 months, but in the last 90 days I've done great, but that last quarter, it was awful. It's just awful.
If you know
certain people thrive in it. So the answer to your question is, I have asked the county, the HR folks, to look at that and see what the option, but as of right now, April 1st, the remote work will be gone, per se.
And if I could interject, let's also keep in mind that a lot of our social workers are working mothers. And so Wednesdays are still remote school days.
That's why I was asking.
Caldwell
Yeah.
and Catawba.
Yeah.
Burke is back, I think, back full-time.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be working from the office those days, but their children are remote working or other arrangements.
I think that's something we need to look at. Really, from the mother's perspective, especially, because we only have until the end of May that these kids are in school, and it may be a totally different deal in the fall. But, I'm not trying to shake things up. I'm just saying maybe we should just look at the last 8 weeks of, those Wednesdays and make sure that we're not only serving the children in this community, but the working moms that are still having to also be partly home with their kids. I don't know. Just a thought.
Nope, I think you're preaching to the choir. I don't think there's anybody in this room that disagree with you. Unfortunately, the choir is not the
Well, who makes those decisions?
the HR and county commissioners.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's an HR thing that it would have to go back to a policy change within the county government, the whole county government. So in other words, if we did it for DSS, we'd have to do it for all the other agencies across the county as well. So, but that is, I have asked them to look at that, and I know they are talking through that, so.
Okay.
I just don't know what kind of look we're gonna have, but we can talk about it offline.
Sounds good.
I just want to thank all of you for the tremendous job you do. And, you know, coming from a position where I was in the schools, I worked with social workers from numerous DSS agencies across the state when children were placed in one of our group homes here or therapeutic fosters. And Caldwell County's social workers are the gold standard. You guys do a tremendous job, and there is a difference in the quality of service you get. So I just wanted to commend you and thank you for all you do for our kids. You are appreciated, and happy Social Work Month.
Anybody else? All right. Anybody else want to add anything before we move on? Social workers, now's your time. Okay, y'all did a fantastic job, and I look forward to seeing you in the next, I don't know, 60 days. In case y'all make sure that when you come again that, you know, everybody's aware that you have this fear of getting up and talking in public, but you did an absolutely wonderful job. You've never known that you were nervous, so great job. Thank you guys so much. Next on the agenda is going to be monthly updates. We'll start with the financial report. Chris Conley.
Good evening. Our February 2021 financial report. Reimbursements totaled $995,831. We ended the month with receivables at about $1,036,000. To the far right of those numbers is our expense total for the month, which was $1,119,935. So our county dollar expense for the month, which of course is expenses minus revenues, totaled $124,104. Reviewing the year-to-date section in the middle of the page, through February, expenses are actually $101,905 less than at the same point as last year. Our revenues are also down, the total of $76,830. But with expenses and revenues being down a little bit in the current year, our county dollar utilized to this point in the year is $25,074 less than prior year. That's the report for the month. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got any questions? Chris? I always like it when you have them parentheses around those numbers.
Yeah, sometimes the negative is a good thing,
That's
right?
exactly right. When you're talking about budgets, it's a good thing.
Right.
Generally speaking. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate you giving us an update.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is going to be the director's report. Mr. Will Wakefield, Director.
I'll just touch on a couple of things real quick. If you look at our personnel report, we do have a couple of positions that we are still recruiting for. We did get a number of positions hired within the past month or so, but we are still recruiting for several other positions. Thank you for your work around the budget. We had good meetings with everyone over the past several weeks, and I appreciate all of your questions and your thoughts, and that's always good. I want you to understand as much as possible about the budget. I know there's all kinds of little bits and pieces to it, but I do appreciate each of you in asking the questions, and If you have any follow-up questions, please never hesitate to ask about that. But thank you for that. We will get that turned in tomorrow to the county office. I just want to mention real quick, we do have a group of folks who are going to go be a part of the cleanup Caldwell in several weeks. So I'm not sure which road. We haven't picked our road yet, but we'll get to that, and we will have a group from DSS doing that.
You shouldn't have no problem finding one.
No, there's definitely not a problem finding a road. But Donnie is heading that up, and so we've got a group that is going to be out there that day. As we just finished talking about, all staff will be back in the building this Thursday. We had some folks come back Monday, and then we'll have the rest of the folks come back Thursday, just to kind of give us a little bit of a transition with that. And I wanted to mention just briefly the FFPSA, which is our Family First Prevention Services Act, and we're going to probably do a presentation the next month or so on that. We haven't talked about that in a while, but that has to do with some of our foster children, has to do with some of the funding, and that really gets kicked off a little bit later this year. So we want to kind of bring that back to you so that you have a good understanding of what's going to be going on there. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there to say that we will be talking about that, because I think I mentioned that in some of our budget conversations, just around, we don't know exactly what all that's going to look like right now, and so we've when we talk about budget and we talk about our numbers, we don't like uncertainty, obviously. So before that really gets to us, we want to bring that back in front of you and talk to you a little bit more about that. And I'll stop there, but if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Think we're all good?
Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Next on the agenda is Child Services Highlights. Ms. Kim Arnett, Program Administrator.
I feel like I really can't say much after everyone that's presented tonight, because they did
Kind of hard to follow
such a
that.
good job.
Kind of hard to follow that. They did a great job.
They did a great job really talking about the things that they experience on a day-to-day
Well,
basis.
you can hear the passion and
Yeah.
the love and the concern they have for what they do. So that's what I
Yeah,
picked
and
up
we
out of
get
it.
called up every day, and I say we, I mean me and the supervisors and just everyone in general get caught up in the day-to-day happenings of social work, and we forget to sometimes say thank you, we appreciate you, because, we're just going around putting out fires every single day, just like April talked about. You have this agenda at the beginning of the day, and it just gets derailed as that time goes. And so we do appreciate our social workers so much, and the sacrifices they make daily, and the hard work and commitment and passion they have for their job. So with that said, we do have, March is Social Worker Appreciation Month, and this is the end of March. And so we decided that we were going to do some things for our social workers on April 1st, because it's the day they're coming back into the office. And so everyone will be there if they're not out doing visits, but we're going to have a couple little tokens of appreciation. We're going to do something mid-morning for them, and then we're going to do something around 1 to 3 for them at the office. So I say that because if any of you would like to come to the office between 1 and 3, or even mid-morning, just to pop in and say, hey, we appreciate what you do, and we thank you, I think they would like that. So
that's the first.
On Thursday.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a little special.
At what time
treat.
again?
So mid-morning around 10 we'll do something, but really in the afternoon we're going to
When is
have.
the best time to come?
I'd say afternoon. I'd say
After, give me a time.
1 to 3.
Okay.
We're going to have a little event for them, 1 to 3.
So I made a note here. So who's in the room here? So we don't spill the beans. Would it be too late to recognize a social worker of the year?
Do you have, I guess my question would be, what would we determine, or how would we determine that? Are you asking
about
us
y'all.
to? Okay, so you're asking us to select?
Well, I think
one?
that because of time,
Yeah.
it would about have to be between the three of you, maybe. But maybe as we go forward, maybe we make it an annual thing, and
Yeah.
we let, people vote, or whatever y'all come up with.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of quick to do it by April 1st, but I made a note here that, I forget which one it was that recognized that, nobody, no civic clubs or no organizations recognize them.
Yeah,
And that's got to start with us
yeah.
as an
Is that
agency.
a good thing? Would that be a good thing, or would that cause some people to go, well, we're not gonna do it? I mean,
Well, I think for this time, maybe because it's such a short time period that maybe we recognize them all. But
I'm okay with
perhaps
that.
going forward, maybe that's something, because I think that, we do the blue ribbon. And that's a time when someone in the community gets recognized. And I think if we did something similar, maybe started something like that, where it becomes a tradition, maybe it would be more accepted that way. But I
Well,
think
maybe you name it after a retired social worker that made a contribution for many years, or something that worked with us for a long time, or maybe somebody who passed away, or,
yeah.
this would be the Will Wakefield Award, or whatever it might be.
Passed away yet.
I know you're not there yet. I just know that, if you could do it in kind of somebody's memory, it would mean a
Sure,
lot to that.
sure, yeah.
I think it would have a lot more.
Yeah, I think
sizzle
that's
to it.
something we certainly can explore. I think for this time, maybe it would be probably just a good idea to do just a recognition
Yep,
of all.
it's fine.
And then going forward, like I said, maybe look at that and see what we can, see how we
What you
can
can
come
muster up, yeah.
Yeah, come up with that. But we'd love for y'all to join us that afternoon.
so where would we come? Kim?
You just come to the office and you can let Will know that you're there.
Just
It's
give me a
gonna
call,
be,
yeah.
we're gonna have, it's gonna be downstairs. There's gonna be, I don't wanna say, but whatever.
So
I
on
was
the
just like-
main level, when you first walk
Yeah,
in the building?
yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna have someone come and bring some treats for the social workers. And then other people in the agency can also, pay for some treats if they want them. But it'll be free for the social workers for Social Worker Appreciation Month, so.
What side of the building would be the best to enter for that?
The back.
The back, okay,
Mhm,
that's
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, just give me a call and we'll
Okay,
get you.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna come, yeah.
Okay, so, sorry, I'm having an issue with my voice tonight. I don't know what's going on. Maybe so. So there's nothing really outstanding with our numbers for February of '21, although our adoption numbers were pretty high for the month. Our foster care numbers are kind of lingering around the same. We did have a little increase in our 18 to 21 population. So, do you have any questions about the statistics, or any questions about anything that was said tonight, or,
I guess the one thing that I picked up on was supervisors feeling torn about not being able to provide some protection for their workers to alleviate burnout. And I know that
Yeah.
burnout is a thing. And so I still want to, at some point, get together with you and others to see if we can do some resiliency
Yes.
training and teach them those self-care tools.
Yeah.
Because it makes a difference as far as preserving your health, and so I'd really love to do
yeah,
that.
I actually just reached out to the state a week and a half ago asking for some trainings on burnout prevention.
Mhm.
And there's just not a lot out there.
Right.
So Will and I actually talked about having some of the resiliency training bringing that in office. I really want to do that when it's in person.
Absolutely.
I just think that, telework is great, remote or virtual visits are great, but there's just a piece of that means so much more in person. But if we can't get there, soon enough, we can do something virtual, but I do agree with you. I'd like to bring that in.
Maybe over the summer, because a lot of times when school is out, things are a little bit calmer during the summer. and
Right.
It might be a good time.
Yeah.
And there are several resiliency trainers in Caldwell County
Right.
who could do that without cost.
I was going to say,
And we could do that
Yeah.
live probably by then.
That'd be good. That'd be great.
I think you could find it outside the state, because
Yeah.
I'm familiar with a couple of places
Yeah.
she's talking about. so.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Okay.
I would like for you to, and we can talk about it later, but the young man I was telling you about, he's offered his services, I guess, per se, that come and speak. If there's a opportunity for him to come talk to a group of, foster kids, or just kind of keep that in mind, because I'm telling you, this guy's dynamite.
Yeah, it may be good to even talk to our
Staff.
social workers.
Yeah.
About
Well,
what,
Great,
what
great
it
idea.
meant to him and what the social work, what was particularly meaningful for him.
Yeah.
So that's
And
always
he's-
good for them to hear.
And he could be a stand-up comedian, so he's got a little bit of personality.
Yeah.
He's very,
Dynamic, yeah.
dynamic, and, I mean, that's just, he would be fantastic for that.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know.
We'll talk about it,
All
yeah.
right. Okay.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Great job. Next is Adult and Family Support Services highlights. Ms. Martha Hedrick, Economic Services Administrator.
Good evening. First, I want to say I feel like I need to go to my car and reapply my makeup after everybody's talking. And second, I kind of feel like I've been at a church service and heard this really great thing, and then here I am bringing up the end. So I'll try to make it as painless as possible. So regarding our numbers for February, we have seen an increase in the food nutrition service programs and the Medicaid programs due to COVID policy. A lot of those are just getting auto-extended and increased. Food nutrition services, we're starting to look at them going back to some normalcy of policies, probably in July, August, and September. And with Medicaid, excuse me, we've not really gotten any definite information on when those will go back to normal. So our caseworkers are still keying recertifications for those programs, and they're still completing changes, but we cannot terminate benefits. So our number is going to continue to go up and go up until the COVID policies are terminated and we can actually look at cases for the full face value. For both programs, we can actually only terminate if they have deceased out or formally requested termination on their own. So those numbers will continue to keep rising until we go back to normal policy. Our child care staff is still currently working our waiting list, maintaining that information while we work on doing our spin down. And our child support numbers have actually also went up over the last couple of months. And I kind of wanted to give you some updates while we're preparing for managed care to go live, or I think as I've called it the last couple of times, we call it in-house Medicaid transformation. So the state sent out packets in March to applicable clients who would fit this first rollout, and it will go live July 1st. So they have been given the information on the packets of these are the providers that you will have to choose from. This is the enrollment broker that you can call if you have questions, or you can download this app on your cell phone, or you can go online and look at the information. Of course, we have literature at the agency that we're also passing out to people. We've started getting some calls coming into the agency, but our switchboard has actually been doing a phenomenal job. We've been working on some training with her the last couple of months on how to answer the majority of those questions. So we're keeping the brunt of that with our switchboard operator so our workers can continue working, and we're funneling those calls back to the enrollment brokers in Raleigh. We have a local TV show that's coming out probably next week with a lot of information about this, and it's actually getting ready to be put on our local website as well. And I did bring each of you, this is the card that we have that we're giving out to clients. It has the information on the front on the place that you will call in Raleigh or their website, and on the back it has each of the different insurance companies that you can choose, and you can call them directly to see what their incentives might be. I know sometimes you all get calls from citizens in the county, so I brought each of you one so you'll have that information. So if you get that call, then you'll know what to do with that client as well. Of course, you can always refer them back to the agency, and we'll take those calls and help them as well.
Just give them Will's number.
That works. The only other thing I was going to talk about is, of course, we're ramping up with continuing audits. It feels like with, especially Medicaid, their poor lives is like a never-ending audit. So next week we are starting our SA audit. So that's going to be looking at our long-term care Medicaid cases. That's going to be about a week-long process. They've already sent us the list of those cases, so we're going ahead and prepping them and getting them ready, and that's going to be a virtual audit. We're getting ready to start preparing for a single county audit that we're looking at for May, so we're starting to second-party extra program integrity cases and food nutrition cases and Medicaid cases, because those are normally bigger, larger numbered programs that get pulled for that. And we're also working on our accuracy improvement plan with the regular Medicaid programs, and that fully starts next week as our first week of that. And so with that, that entails all of the supervisors coming together, doing a weekly phone call with the state office. They'll be requesting records from our people each week. We have to turn those around, talk over them with them, make any corrections that's deemed necessary. So it's like a never-ending process for those folks. But they come in and they'll do it every day with a smile and say, "What do you need? Can I help you? And let's fix it." And they are wonderful at what they do. So that's kind of where we stand with audits. And then numbers. Do you have any questions for me? Like I said, I'm pulling up the end here, so.
Yeah, how are we doing on the wait list for childcare? Are we?
We have surpassed 100 children for Caldwell County. But we have had a small cluster drop-off in March, so we're hoping to do a small add-on in April, but it will not be the whole waiting list.
Do we know how many's on the waiting list? Do we roughly ballpark?
Roughly right now, around 170.
Okay.
And I think what was our coefficient, we were still a little bit over 100%, but I know it was a little bit lower.
104?
104.
I think we're at 104 on our spending coefficient.
Perfect.
So we're close. And we'd also kind of heard some back and forth that the state might come in and help some and look at waiving some parent fee information as well. But even though we do have the waiting list, we're still continuing to make sure that we are providing childcare for our high-risk groups, which is homeless, pregnant, and homeless mothers, and then child welfare. So that is all-encompassing of CPS foster care.
Well, because I sit on DSS Board, that number is always important to me, making sure these kids are in daycare instead of sitting in front of a television
We,
or running around in
oh yes,
dirty diapers or whatever you want to call it.
we actually had a worker since they were alternating for teleworking, so we kind of started branching out a little bit on what we could do with people that were in office versus what we could do with the people that were at home.
Right.
So we were able to start, it used to be that we would only contact our clientele when we were ready to move forward with them on the waiting list. We're now trying to contact them at least every 2 weeks to update and say, this is where your standing is on the waiting list. Have you had any changes during this time frame? Are you still eligible for this service? So we'll know if we can continue to keep you on the list or do we need to move you off?
I like it.
So we're
It's called
trying to keep it as upbeat as possible
Yeah,
with
that's fantastic.
where we stand.
That's fantastic.
Anything else? All righty.
I think that's it. Great job. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
So this kind of brings us to the end of our meeting, and has anybody got anything before let me finish up here, I guess. Our next board meeting will be on Tuesday, April 27th at 5 p.m. here in the same location out in East Orange Building. And with that being said, that brings us to the end of our meeting. And anybody got anything they want to say before we close it out and adjourn? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment of the meeting then.
I'll make a motion.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Thank you for joining us this evening in person as well as on television. Meeting's adjourned.